I'm Emily Rooney. Welcome to Beat the Press. Our topics. The usually docile sports media pushes Mr. Abrupt himself and gets results. New York Times 538 blogger Nate Silver packs his number-crunching skills and heads to ESPN. And why the Royal Baby Watch was so big this side of the pond. And our panel rants and raves of the week. Joining me are Dan Kennedy of Northeastern University, WGBH's Kelly Crossley, Marjorie Egan, also of WGBH and the Boston Herald, and Joshua Benton of the Neiman Journalism Lab. First, Patriots coach Bill Belichick finally weighed in this week on Aaron Hernandez, the former Patriots tight end who's now accused of murder. By his standards, the infamously terse Belichick was relatively outspoken, but the media's praise for his performance seemed a bit overblown. The media room at Gillette Stadium was packed this week when New England Patriots coach Bill Belichick took the podium.
You know, it's a sad day. It's really a sad day on so many levels.
The topic was Aaron Hernandez, the former Patriots tight end who is accused of murdering 27-year-old Odin Lloyd last month. The usually robotic Belichick opened up a bit.
The young man lost his life, and his family's suffered a tragic loss, and there's no way to understate that.
And when Belichick balked at answering questions, the media pushed back.
Yeah, I'll refrain from making any more comments on any ongoing people involved in judicial process.
Isn't this the time to do that, though?
Before Wednesday's presser, Boston Herald football scribe Ron Borges urged Belichick not to grouse, grimace, and grumble. Afterward, Borges said he was pleasantly surprised.
In general, I thought he was much more open than usual, and frankly, if he did that more often, probably people would look at him differently.
The rest of the media were even more impressed.
He was above and beyond what anyone expected.
He was thoughtful, contrite, he was clear.
Then there was the Boston Globe's Dan Shaughnessy, who called Belichick empathic, remorseful, dignified, and best of all, human. That calls for an instant replay. Asked if anything would change, here's how Belichick responded.
We have a process in place. Can it be improved? Can it be modified? It possibly can. We'll certainly look at it.
Sounds a lot like the old Belichick to me. Yeah, I mean, the bar is pretty low for this guy. The fact that he said more than 2 words at a time, he was getting this great praise. The headline on Dan Shaughnessy's column, and I realize he didn't write it, said he showed class and he was sensitive. I didn't see that, frankly. He never mentioned Odin Lloyd by name. I thought it was kind of robotic the way he usually does. I mean, the truth of the matter is that the Patriots want to be treated like a great civic institution, and yet they don't allow access. The Red Sox are the same way. They wanted us to adore them for all their philanthropic work and everything, but in a sense, they're completely inaccessible. And I thought Belichick did okay, and I don't cover sports regularly, but I didn't see a great difference in the way he behaved at this press conference in terms of the way he usually does.
Well, I think the big difference between how Belichick acted at this press conference as opposed to his usual demeanor is that he's usually pretty dismissive toward the media. And in this case, his demeanor may have been the same, but he at least seemed to be trying to speak from the heart to some extent and not be dismissive of the questions that were coming his way. I thought he did pretty well, and I thought Robert Kraft did pretty well a few weeks before that. They're certainly in a no-win situation. This is not a situation of their making by any means, and certainly they're not to blame for it in any way, but they have to address it. Maybe the praise was a little bit over the top, but for that matter, I don't think they really deserved any criticism either. So
I thought he could have said a lot more.
You know what I thought was weird, because I don't cover sports either, but I was the Herald wanted me to write a column about this Belichick Brady thing and what should Brady say the following day and stuff like that. And so I thought I should make some phone calls to have some sense of what was going on here. And I was stunned by fans I called, even by sports watchers, I call people like that. That this is what they do. They look at the media coverage of sports. Talk about reverence. I think it would have been fine for a lot of these fans if Belichick never mentioned this. If Tom Brady never mentioned this. Initially, he said he moved on and he wasn't going to talk about the Hernandez case. He didn't even say Hernandez case. He was going to talk about the team, what they were going to do. So I was amazed. This guy on your team may have killed somebody, may have killed 2 more people, and the idea that you wouldn't have to address that, Belichick is the guy who hired him and Brady is the guy who threw 1 million footballs to him, it just seems so odd, the attitude fans and sports watchers have toward the Patriots, like you said, like we're going to the cathedral of the New England Patriots. It's really bizarre. I did note that Belichick called Mr. Kraft, who you usually hear Mr. Kraft, I don't know why it's Mr. Kraft, he called him Robert. So I thought, well, maybe the head coach gets to call him Robert and everybody else has to call him Mr. Kraft.
What I thought was interesting, I think the reason there may be, by the way, I don't cover sports, maybe such interest and reverence for Belichick is because of what Brady didn't say. So the contrast was huge. So, Brady's like, oh, we're focusing on winning. It's the same thing they say after every game, no matter what's happened. And so now that you say the same sort of pro forma little comment that you would after any other game, and yet we're talking about a scenario where, as you say, 3 people possibly could have been killed by your teammate, that was ridiculous. So by contrast, the fact that Belichick said, listen, we're dealing with somebody, this is a very sad situation, and somebody lost their loved one, seems like, whoa. So I would not describe it as speaking from the heart. I would describe it as taking a moment to just be a little human. But that's different for me. That's different from speaking from the heart. The heart is really a little bit more open, a little bit more sensitive, and I didn't get that from him. But I just think I think he's getting the attention he's getting, or what he said, because of what Brady said or didn't say.
I actually give credit to Ron Borges from the Boston Herald. That was a really, really tough column that he wrote the day before.
The day before. And
it's almost like Bill Belichick read that and said, the guy's probably right. I gotta come out and be a straight shooter. I can't say I'm not going to comment on this.
Well, there's a weird paternalism that is in the relationship between a head coach and his team, and even the fan base of a team. It's a kind of relationship that is qualitatively different from being, a city manager or something like that. It's a different kind of civic institution. I do think there was an unfair thread of expectation in what some sports columnists wanted out of this press conference, which was an explanation, a sort of taking of responsibility, sort of, why didn't you know that this guy was going to go shoot a bunch of people? That's sort of a vibe. That you saw that in some of the columns, and I think that is fundamentally unfair and sort of in the thread of moralizing that goes on with a certain kind of sports column. I do think, though, that it's hard to give Belichick a ton of credit for it. It's not as if never speaking about this ever again was going to be a tenable strategy. That's not something you want hanging over your team throughout an entire season. You need to come out and have one moment where you have this press conference. The same way that Tiger Woods had to have that one press conference where he just took the slings and arrows and dealt with it. So he did that. He did that in a way that seemed vaguely humanoid, and that's a plus.
It wasn't as if he was under threat of the law not to say more. When he kept saying, I can't talk about an ongoing.
But this is
exactly.
Exactly. That it's a business. They have to do this for PR reasons, and they had to get it done.